and welcome to College of Lore. I'm Jill.
And I'm Kate.
Thanks for joining us for a chat about role-playing games. Today we're going to be talking about End of the World, and this will be a review video of this tabletop role-playing game. End of the World is sort of an apocalypse-based game where you get to play as yourself, and we did a video about how to roll a character in the system, so you can check that out if you want.
So this book is the one that we played with on stream, and it's called End of the World Alien Invasion. So this book comes with explanation of the rules of the game, so the End of the World system, how to create your character, how the game mechanics work. So there's like dice pools of d6s that you accumulate with positive and negative dice. It explains all of that and how it all works. And then in addition, the second part of the book is various scenarios. I think there's about 5 in this book. And in this book, they're all different versions of alien invasions. So there's like little green men, there's these visage aliens that sort of take over or replicate other people and take over their bodies. There's all kinds of different aliens in this book. And so when you buy this book, you have sort of a variety of types of alien invasions that you can choose from.
I really like that you get the character creation, you get basically the monster manual and the player's handbook. It's all in one book,
and it's
pretty
not
thin.
huge.
Yeah.
It's easy to get through this book.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, this is just Alien Invasion, but there are other source books that you can get depending on what type of apocalypse you want to play. So there's a zombie apocalypse one that I've also played, and there are also a few others. I think that there's like an Anger of the Gods type one.
That one sounds
something
like one
like
I'd
a
love
Rise
to
of the
see.
Machines. I don't know them all, but if you go to the Fantasy Flight website, I'm sure that they're all listed there, and you can check out and see if there's one sort of type of apocalypse that speaks to you that you might be interested in. And then each of those source books will have various types of apocalypse scenarios on that theme,
Right.
which is pretty cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
It's very strange playing a tabletop role-playing game as yourself. I found it very intense. Kate was running the session we did. The stream is on our YouTube as well. One thing I wanted to bring up was that during the character creation, you do have this moment where you're kind of, in your words, whereas you're being introspective, but also we're kind of like judging each other a little bit.
Yes, so character creation has the potential for a bit of social awkwardness that isn't present in other games, because in other games you're just making up some other character, but in this game you're trying to make yourself on this character sheet. So it can be weird allotting those points into your characteristics. It can be weird thinking of positive and negative features about yourself.
Right.
Depending on the person, it might be really hard to think of positive or negative features about yourself that you need to write down and then share them with the table.
Definitely.
In addition, when we're voting, everybody else is judging what you chose to represent yourself as in your characteristics, and sometimes telling you, no, you need to decrease those stats. You're not as strong as you said you are.
Right.
Bring it down.
Right.
So that can be awkward. I would just suggest like letting everybody know that before you play, because the potential for that awkwardness is there.
Right.
And I would also suggest framing that voting with respect to the repercussions on features later. Right. When during the voting phase you have to decrease one of your characteristics, you get more positive features in that characteristic. Right. And when you get to increase a stat, you have to take additional negative features. Right. So it's best not to think of increasing or decreasing your stat as a good or bad thing inherently. They're both good and bad.
Right. Because you'll get benefits if you take a negative. So it's kind of... Yeah.
But it is something to consider that somebody could have their feelings hurt by their friends telling them that one of their characteristics isn't as high as they thought.
Yeah.
So it's something
Something
that
to
happens in the
consider.
game, and
Yeah.
it's something to keep in mind when you're deciding to play it, and when you're deciding who to play it with as well.
Definitely. Because one thing that's interesting, like in different role-playing games, when you're playing as someone else, often your flaws are a really great part of what makes role-playing fun. So in this game, it's kind of weird because your flaws are you. So you know, like, do you ham them up? Do you, you know, so it's a bit, it adds a bit of a complication, I think, to coming up with your flaws or coming up with your
Especially
positives.
if somebody is touchy about certain flaws.
Right, totally.
But I think, like, in life, it's best to know what your flaws are.
Totally.
And to be aware of them and to be okay with them, because nobody is perfect.
Right.
So,
Yet.
yeah.
So one thing that I found when we were playing was that, like, the character creation felt a little bit unbalanced. But I think that just came from the fact that we had never played before, and the entire table, we all have computer-based jobs. So we all felt like we were low in the physical ability. I don't think we were considering the fact that we're not comparing ourselves to, like, superheroes or super strong people.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be average people, and everyone who's playing is supposed to be an average person. So for us to kind of shortchange ourselves all in the dexterity area, it kind of caused a bit of an imbalance in the second half of the game when we had to do combat.
Yes. And remember that in the second half of the game, so that's another aspect of this that we haven't really talked about, but each of the scenario types, like each of the types of alien, has an apocalypse setting and a post-apocalypse setting. And in the second part of our game, I jumped us forward and we played in the post-apocalypse setting. And in order to reflect that time had passed and you had changed, I had everybody lower their physical characteristic, one of them, by 1 point. And so you were even weaker to represent the fact that you were old and frail.
Right.
So it made it even harder.
Yes.
But yes, we were talking about this earlier. So this physical dexterity characteristic, that's your offensive physical characteristic. It's not just meant to be your physical brute strength.
Right.
It's meant to be dexterity as well. So if you are really nimble and good with your hands or quick, then you can have a high dexterity score as well. And like you were saying, each of the characteristics goes from 1 to 5. That's not 1 normal human, 5 superhero.
Right.
It's 1 to 5 is the range of, like, normal people.
Yeah.
So most people would be a 3.
Right. And we would probably be a 3 if we had more points to go in there.
Yeah, well, and that's the other part, the cool tension of this game, I think, is you get sort of those 10 points to distribute among your characteristics at the beginning of the game. It's not enough to make you who you are.
Right.
So the voting becomes important for that reason. Because in the voting phase, everybody else gets to choose to either allow you to increase one of your stats or to decrease it or to leave it the same way. So in my opinion, that tension is intentional.
Right.
Yeah.
And one thing that one of our players suggested was that we maybe, I think it was JF that mentioned, that maybe before the game, part of the creation could be discussing with each other, like, do you want to act as more of a tank type character? Do you want to attack? Do you want to be kind of more attack or DPS type of a character?
Yeah.
So kind of like sharing, like sticking to yourself, like who's the strongest among us? Well, maybe you
that
would want
person
to
needs to
be,
have the highest physical characteristics,
like,
and
kind
they
of
will be our
collaborating
our tank, right? Yeah.
So maybe having more of a collaborative discussion about that might have had our party being a bit more balanced in that way.
For sure. But also, because most of the time you're just going to be playing 1 or 2 sessions, it's not really meant, you can play like a long campaign, but it's more meant for like 1 or 2 sessions. You know, the next time that you play, you will know better what you should put. And so I feel like it's kind of fun to just like figure it out as you go too. But yeah, it is something to think about. You don't want to shortchange yourself at the beginning.
Yeah, it's tricky. Like, allotting the points is tricky and interesting.
Yeah.
And one thing that's kind of neat too is, like, maybe one of the aliens you won't be having physical combat with. Like, you don't know, like, maybe they're weak to smiling.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a bit about GMing this game. One thing that you did that was really great was that before we played, Kate checked with us and saw if there was any content warnings or trigger warnings that we needed to let her know so that she wouldn't go into that area in the game.
And so this is something that I actually like to do all the time. I think it's a good idea for any role-playing game, but this session was particularly important to me for two reasons. One, you're playing as yourself, so you're imagining yourself and your family and friends in an apocalyptic setting, which could come to be
very dark.
Very dark. Also, 3 of the people that we were playing with, I had never met before. So I know Jill very well. I have some ideas of the things that maybe would be too much for her to handle in the game, but these other people, I didn't know them very well. Right. So I would recommend, if you can, to offer that up to players that are playing in your game.
What we kind of said was that we didn't have any specific things that would bother us, but what we said was kind of like a PG-16 sort of feel. So nothing too far, like too graphic.
I offered to have them private message me, and one person
which is important.
One person did private message me,
Good.
because that way they don't have to say it out loud to everyone as well.
Exactly.
Another thing too that I like to do before we start playing is mention to everyone, okay, remember this is supposed to be fun, so if there's anything that comes up and it's not feeling fun, just say so, and then you can sort of speed through things or skip things altogether if necessary. But it is an apocalyptic setting, and
meant to be thrilling and frightening.
I do try and play it as like a horror themed game where, you know, there can be lightheartedness and fun and humor, because there always is in role playing.
As far as we've experienced,
yes, anyway. Generally that's always part of the appeal. I do really love a good horror RPG, and to have that sort of tenseness present in the game too.
Definitely,
so,
definitely. And it feels a little bit more dire because you are on the line. Like it's you know? Yes. I was just kind of wondering, like, what was the prep like? So you knew that you were going to come to my apartment and that you'd be in an area that you've only seen once. Did that make it kind of harder or easier for you?
It's harder if you don't know the area. And so I think it really depends on your GMing style.
Right.
And how much you typically like to prepare versus wing it. I lean on the wing it side.
Okay.
I actually prepared a little bit more for this game than I would typically because we were streaming it, so I didn't want to have moments where I was stopping and thinking and humming and hawing, which I normally would be okay with.
Right, totally.
So things that you can do if you want to prepare, well, the number one thing that I think would be best is run the game somewhere that you are familiar with. So invite people over to your house and run it there, because then you know the house really well, you know the area really well. But if you don't know the area, one thing that I did do was I did a quick search on Google Maps of this area, and I just sort of looked around to see what was nearby and just sort of thought to myself, what is around that they might need. The players are never going to do exactly what you think they're going to do, so you can rely on their knowledge. So that happened in our stream when we were driving down the highway in front of your house, and JF wanted to turn around in one of those little U-turn things, and I didn't know if there was one of those on the highway, so I asked the table. Like, are there?
And I don't think there was one.
No, because the highway is divided by a median. Neil knew that, so he said, no, there isn't. And so, you know, you can, if there's something that you don't know, you can look it up on the spot. Okay, we're talking about the real world, so just Google it. But the thing that you should do to prepare is read through the scenario in entirety in the back of the book, and I actually read through it a few times. What's back there is a general description of what happens in the apocalypse. It gives you a lot of information, everything you need to know about the aliens in this case, what their characteristics are, what they do, what their goal is, how they got here, all that stuff. It also gives you a timeline. So day 1 to day whatever. I think it's usually like a year, or I don't know, it might not be the same timeline, but it delineates this sort of timeline of things that happen so that you can use that to contextualize.
That's really cool.
Where you are. It also gives you a bunch of sample potential encounter locations. So like busy downtown area or hospital or farm. And so you can read through those, especially the ones that you think might be likely your players will encounter. And that gives you an idea before you start playing the game of what kinds of things might happen. So a roadblock is one of the suggestions in the book. And when you guys got on the highway, I thought, there's a roadblock. Yeah, exactly. Just like any role-playing game, the materials that are here are very freeform. And it's not like a pre-made adventure, for example. You might be able to find pre-made adventures online, but in the book, there's nothing like that.
I feel like it'd be kind of hard to make a pre-made adventure because how would they know where you're going to be or where you're going to play? Like if you want to play it actual through reality, then how
it's hard.
Would they know?
And that's why I like those sample encounters, and that's just a place, that's just a jumping off point. You can go beyond that, right? So it is very freeform, which is good and sort of mandatory for this type of system.
If you're a GM that wings things a lot, this might be a system you'd
very
be interested
good.
in.
If you're not, it might be hard for you because I also think even if you like, I could write a module for myself, and have a very detailed delineation of what's going to happen. But I don't feel like that would be as fun for the players to play because there's a high chance that they might feel a bit railroaded. So what I did was I had certain encounters in mind that you guys might have, and those were just sort of in my back pocket, and I pulled them out
when kind of came up.
Whenever one seemed to fit. And I did have like an end goal in mind. I wanted you guys to make it down to the harbor. I was really lucky because that was one of the first things that you guys came to the conclusion of, well, let's go to the harbor. So okay. But I had certain things that I would have presented to you to get you there if you weren't going there. So that's...
Because I think one of the first things, like the first thing I did when we found out that there was something in the water was I was like, I put salt in the water, and then you were able to kind of give me an indication that that meant something.
Exactly.
It was really fun.
So I think this leans more towards improv and less planning than many other role-playing games do. In addition, in a lot of role-playing games like D&D, you need to do some calculation to figure out, like, okay, here's my party, here's what their levels are, here's what they can handle. And you have to do some calculation to figure out, like, how many monsters of what CR you can, like, give them. This isn't, there's nothing like that in this game. So you have to play it by ear. What I did was I had you fight just one alien to start and saw how you did, and then that led me to sort of extrapolate and increase, and I tried to ramp things up from that. So the first encounter's easy. Mostly you're just like learning about the aliens,
what they're weak against, or what they're strong against,
and then that gives you an idea as the GM what they're going to be able to handle. And I think I succeeded in making that last encounter challenging, doable, but you were worried.
Oh yeah, definitely. I was super worried. I think the only thing that saved us was the flamethrower.
Well, and I sort of fudged the flamethrower being able to hit a bunch of people at once. It makes sense.
It makes sense. Narrative sense.
That's another thing I think with this game is the rules are very sparse, which is good because it makes it easy to learn. But you, as the GM, have to make calls and modify rules, and you have to be comfortable with that, or at least that's how I feel. No,
I agree with you. Like, in the book, they have sort of a list of weapons, but we didn't necessarily have the weapons. Like, we were using a super soaker filled with salt water as one of our weapons, and that was clearly not in the book. So you had to fudge some things.
Use that table to make a decision about what that super soaker would be in this game. So it's not all laid out for you. If you're the kind of DM who needs very specific steps, that's not something you're going to find in the book.
So one thing I really liked about this system was that it was very quick to play. So you were able to come with this book, and for us, we didn't have to prepare anything in advance, and we just kind of rolled characters right there. I think that took maybe under an hour.
About an hour,
and then we were able to get right into the game. Like, it was a very quick system. like all of our players were veteran like D&D role-playing players, but for someone who has never played a role-playing game before, and if they really liked horror, this might be a really good way to introduce them to the game, because they don't have to stretch their imagination too far as they get to play as themselves.
In addition, the mechanics for creating a character are fairly simple compared to something like D&D.
Yeah, or Pathfinder.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Or like, there's many role-playing games.
There's like...
This is on the lighter end,
Yes.
mechanics-wise. So that's really great.
Yeah.
So what did you think of the game?
I really enjoyed it. I found it really intense, and I thought we had a really great group as well. So thanks guys for playing with us. But if you want to check out the stream, you should watch it, because I don't know if I'm going to broach into spoiler territory.
There's already been a few spoilers.
But there is a point when I found it very intense and very emotional. I think Neil did too, where one of the...
Are you gonna cry?
No, I'm not gonna cry. But one of the points is that the GM kind of takes himself out of the game.
You don't have to. It does recommend it though.
Yeah.
So you can, because you're the GM, it's very difficult for you to remain in the game. But the game starts at the table that you're at. So my typical strategy is to get myself out of the game, and that usually involves me being taken by whatever the apocalypse is.
Right.
So in this case, the aliens got me.
Yeah. So it was kind of upsetting seeing like one of my good friends, and in Neil's case his wife, being taken over, or watch the stream, but kind of succumbing to these aliens. And like there was a point when I felt like my stomach just drop, like I felt like my heart just like crumpled inside my chest, and it was just kind of like that's when the empathy came in, right? So,
and this goes back to what we were talking about before, like, is this okay? Like, are you okay?
Yes.
And being comfortable saying, all right, I'm upset.
Yes. It was super fun though, because I do like watching sort of horror movies and kind of imagining like, what would I do in this kind of a scenario? Yeah. So it's kind of a safe environment where you can explore what you would do.
Yeah, and you can have fun with it too, and maybe be a little bit more heroic than you probably would be, and sort of live out this sort of fantasy. It's a little bit empowering, I find. Yeah. So typical role-playing games are about pretending that you're somebody else who's better than you, right? So that you can do something awesome. Whereas End of the World allows you to be awesome in the face of danger. Yeah, and totally. So that's fun. And it's, it's a really interesting exercise in introspection that I think is very interesting and unique. I've never seen anything like this in another role-playing game. Yeah. So
we recommend it.
Yes. It's one of my favorite role-playing games.
Yeah. I would definitely play it again.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming on this journey with us. If you've ever played this, let us know. If you plan on playing it, let us know. Or if you've played anything similar, if you know of any games that are similar where you play as yourself.
Would love to hear about that for sure.
So leave comments below. And if there's any games you would like us to try, let us know that too. Yeah. So thanks for watching. This has been College of Lore.
Bye.
Bye.